Hello Meteorites. This video is all about decoding the exam action question and helping you to understand how media questions are actually asking you in test, SAC or exam situations. To do this, I teach my students the acronym ABCPET or ABCPET, and I'm going to explain that to you. A equals annotate in the acronym. This includes highlighting and defining the exam action words. Exam action words are often known as instructional verbs, but you can see on screen the words they include. There are also some additional questions, but these are the ones that come up most often in VC and media. It's important that you not only annotate by highlighting, but also make sure you know what you're specifically being asked by that exam action word. So for example, describe is asking you to give a very specific mental image, visual image of of the example that you're given. And it's important that when you're asked to evaluate, that you make sure you include evaluative language. B requires you to bracket around the question. So there are sometimes in a question you're being asked to do a couple of different things. So by bracketing, that creates a mental reminder for you to make sure you answer both parts of the question. C requires you to count the marks. It makes sure that you know you consider what the marks will actually be assigned to, and it's important also for allowing you to make sure you assign the correct amount of time to a question. My suggestion to students is about just under 2 minutes per mark. I think it roughly equates to 1.6. I'm not a great mathematician, so I sort of double it and then skim some off the top. But it makes sure you don't spend too long on, say, a question like it's only worth 3 marks. You're probably only looking at about 4 to 5 minutes on that, so you need to factor in those sorts of things. In an exam, you're not going to know exactly because you won't likely be provided a marking guide, but it's certainly, if you train yourself, you get into the right sort of consideration. So C is for counting the marks. P is for planning. So plan your response. At minimum, write some dot points. I tell my students to remember that some is better than none. So if you run out of time at the end and you've got some planning, assessors will always look for marks. So some is better than none, and planning also helps you get your head together and make sure you respond to the question appropriately. E is for evidence. Remember, you must be specific. Don't speak about all of the text, all of the film. Get a specific scene. Don't talk about all of the way that codes and conventions are always used. Be specific. And E is for evidence. T is for terminology. Look to the question. For the subject-specific terminology, the assessors want you to show your understanding of and make sure that that is featured in your response. I remind my students that when they're writing long form or short answers, that they can always fall back on the TL structure that they learn in English or whatever your school might be. But a really great way that I get my students to think is identify, describe, explain. So your first sentence, which you might know as a topic sentence, should identify what the question is actually asked. The next sentence should be about describing, so that you show your deep understanding. Then you move into expanding and giving evidence, so giving your specific evidence, the key scene or the code and convention you're talking about, or the ideology, etc. And your last sentence can be restating or making sure those key words are in your answer, or even if it's an evaluative question, you can add in an evaluation in your last sentence. But this is all about just having strong answers, using decoding to make sure you show your expert knowledge in your exam, test, or SAC.